Hello, and welcome to this series of videos in which we will show you how to create apps and portals using the Silver Essence platform. In the previous videos, we covered the basics from creating your database model up until the configuration of the screens. In this video, we will take it a step further, and for that, we log on into the portal. And then we will go into the full editor. Now, with the next series of videos, number 7 to 12, we will dive into specific cases you will encounter when configuring a portal. And we will start them off with an example. So, in this portal, we will go to the service issue business controller. And the business controller service issue has a property called processed. Some of the service issues are already handled and completed, and then we mark them as processed, and we can reopen them by right-clicking the property and then changing its value. Or we could go into the edit mode and then we could process it from there. One thing we are lacking here is when was this issue processed? And we're going to encounter some problems after that, but let's solve them one by one. The first issue that we want to solve here is that we need an additional property to store the date when this issue was processed. So we will go into the Mapping Domains tab, and from there we will start the database editor. In our previous video, we went to the database editor using the quick editor, but you can open it up here in the full editor as well. Find the service issues table and click the edit icon. And we are going to add a date time field. And that date time field, let me collapse that panel there. We are going to call that one processed date. Click to add that column and it will be added, and you can see that on the right. Click cancel to return to the list of tables and views. Let's expand this one because we can now hide the database editor. From here you can see the list of tables in that database, and you can see service issues is already extracted. We did that in one of the previous videos. So we cannot extract the complete table again, but we can add the property we added here through the list of properties on the right. So it's inserted into the Silver repository, and if we go to the base entity service issue, we can see it's added in the base entity here. So that's fine. Now let's go into the modeling layer to the business entity. Let's click service issue, and the property will not be available right here. So let's go into the edit mode, go to properties, and then select the inheritance tab. That's the one we used when we added a second base entity to the business entity. And here we can add processed date using the arrow here in the middle. So let's go to the quick editor and let's move processed date to the appropriate place in the screen. So preferably processed date should be right after processed. So Let's select processed date here and enter the correct number and assign it to that position. So that's it. Let's save the configuration and apply the changes, and we can have a look at what we have done so far. We refresh the service issue. Let's open up the service issue here, and if you go into the edit mode, you will see we have a checkbox processed and a date time field to enter the processed date. Now, we need to instruct the user, if he checks processed, that he should also fill the processed date. That's not really trustworthy because the user might forget to fill in the process date, or he fills in the process date but forgets to check this checkbox here. So let's help the user a little bit by providing him with a predefined update for that. For that, we go into the business entity, go into the edit mode and select methods. Methods are predefined updates, and you can add them by clicking the add method button. But in this case, it is on a yes no property, a Boolean property. So we can also click this one, add Boolean method. Now, if we set the processed property to true, that is going to be called process. And if we set it to 0, that's what we call reopen the service issue. And this should work on the processed property. Now click save, and not one but 2 methods will be added. And let's look at them in detail. We have the process method, which will set service issue.processed to the value 1. We also have the reopen method, which will set service issue.processed back to 0. So let's go back to the process method and remember what we wanted to do. We want to have a process button, and we don't want that button if it's already processed, so we can do some pre-validation in this panel. So we can have a pre-validation if it's already processed, and let's check the parameters for that. If service issue.processed already has the value 1, and that's what this method will do, then we should hide that method. It's not available. You cannot do this if it's already the case. So you can add more validations here and give it another title here. So that's the pre-validation. Another thing that we wanted to do here is add an extra parameter, because if the user puts the value to 1, we automatically want to put in the current date time. Now, I'm going to show you this quickly because there is a separate video that will show you all about these dynamic values. So quickly, we click this button to open up our basement helper. We select the category Essence Tools, and we pick the function System Date Time. And again, one of the upcoming videos will show you everything about this in detail. For now, this is the syntax, this is the function we need. So we are going to click select, and then the value is copied in here. Now, let's save that one, and then you will see that the process method will update two fields. One field will get the value 1, and the other one will be filled with system date time. Save and apply these changes. Now let's go to the business controller, because that is where we want those buttons to appear. And let's not refresh it right away. Let me show you. Here is enough room on the screen, so we want the button to appear here, and they will not yet. So we have to go into the edit mode of the business controller, and then we will pick the tab methods here, and we will add an extended method. We will call it process with the UI name process. We will put in a method, and that method will come from the business entity, and this configuration will take care that the method from the business entity is extended to the screen of the business controller. Update permissions are required, and we will check that it's inline. You only have to uncheck inline if you have many methods, and then they will be hidden if you don't check this box under an option more. But for now, just be sure that it is checked. So there is one method in here, and we could add additional methods. But since these two methods are opposite of each other, it doesn't make any sense to add that other one here as well. So let's save the extended method and let's exit this screen. And as you can see, one extended method, one button is added to the business controller. And the next one we are going to add here is the extended method reopen. And this one will be filled with the business entity method reopen. Click to save this one, check if it's inline, and update permissions are required. We're not going to add additional methods, and security is also not for this video. So let's save the method here and let's exit the screen. And as you can see, we have two extended methods here. Now let's save and apply the configuration. Let's refresh the business controller and let's have a look at how this will appear in the screen. We open up the service issue, click the action table open, and here you can see there's a method called process because it's not processed yet. There's one button here, and if you click it, it will set both the checkbox and the date field. And as I said, there's one button here. That's not really true. There are two buttons here, but only one will be visible. So you can process and reopen from here, and that will set that field. So go up here and let's solve the next problem we will encounter, because the user is still able to change these values manually. And since we want to have them both set at the same time, we go into the business entity, open up the quick editor, and go into the entry form presentation tool. Here we are going to deselect the processed and the processed date in the create and edit mode, and we will mark them as read only. update the properties, save and apply these changes. And let's go back to the business controller and refresh the screen. So there you have it. Let's open up the service issue again. And if you go into the edit mode, the fields are gone here, so the user cannot do it manually there. And if he right clicks the checkbox here, that's read only, so he cannot do it anything else than by clicking reopen or process from the menu here. So we are sure that these fields are both filled correctly from here. Now, you might wonder why you need to create the extended methods within the business controller. And you might wonder, are there any other options where these methods could be used? So, yes, that's the case. You can have methods from the business entity that are not exposed as buttons in the business controller, but we are going to expose them in different places. So let's go back to the business entity in edit mode for these methods. Let's expand the attributes panel here, and I will show you where you can have them also. Click this checkbox here, allow from linked list, and click this one, allow from editor. And for the second one, we do the same thing. So click the process or the reopen method, fill in the UI name and check both these boxes. Now, because we said allow this from the editor, let's go here into the list options and let's allow editing from the list, and that's the editable list checkbox there. So let me show you the result, because that will make it clear what this does. Save and apply the configuration, and let's go to the business controllers again. And let's go to service issue types, where in the previous video we added some linked lists. Okay, let's expand this screen a little. Here you have the service issues open, and here you have the processed service issues. Right. In the list, you will have now this select list, and you will have this edit button. This was from the editable list. And as you can see, here's a reopen button. This will call for the same method from here. So we can simply reopen the service issue from here. Now let's go back to the service issues open, and then it will appear here. And from here we can process it again, or we can edit it, and when we are done, click the process button there. So that is where we can make the methods also visible. We will see other options later in this training series. So remember, methods are predefined updates, and you can make them visible as buttons in the business controller, in lists, and in edit screens.